You know, when you're going through particular times in your life or you're trying to discern something and someone comes up to you and says, I got a verse for you. Can you do that? Can you take verses out of context in the Bible and give them to people? Today we have a look. Check it out right here, right now. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Dan Beesley and this channel is all about inspiring intentional discipleship, helping you go deeper in your faith and to live it out in the world today. And today we're looking at whether you can receive or give verses to people who are going through certain situations. You believe it's from God, you believe it's the right thing, but is it right to take verses out of context for letters that were written hundreds of thousands, a couple of thousand years ago, and apply it to modern day and people's situations which are very unique? I got a friend who will say absolutely not. Those letters and those books were written at certain times, talk about certain things that do not apply today, and you do not take a single verse or verses out of context and give it to people. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. We'll look into that. Some people will take verses out of context and try to apply it to their lives. Not in a personal way, not in that kind of discernment way, just trying to understand or make a way that they want to live. Luke 12:19 is one. Take life easy, eat, drink and be merry. And say, well, this is what Jesus taught. Actually, out of context, no. Out of context, you're making it that way. He actually was teaching the opposite in his parable. He was saying something else. So taking things out of context and trying to apply it to say, well, this is what I can do, is completely the wrong thing to do. Habakkuk 2:15 is another one about don't give drinks out to your neighbours and get them drunk and trying to use that as a way. Reading the bigger context, it's about getting them drunk and looking at their naked bodies, and there's all weird things that you wouldn't really do anyway. But trying to apply it to say, no, you can't even give your neighbours alcohol, actually is taken out of context. But here we're looking at people going through a particular time, and can you give or receive those verses that could absolutely help them? And my answer to this, my thing is context is king. And that situation is king. And actually it's going back and looking, does that verse particularly help me in this situation? Is it a verse from God? So here's where my mind really changed on this. I was going through the discernment process of whether I become a vicar in the Church of England. There's a lot of stuff happening in our life. I was just about to go to a meeting, and my spiritual director called me, a very, very wise man, big Christian for a long time, and he said, I've got a verse for you. Here's the verse. Jeremiah 29:11. Everyone knows this, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Very special for me. I took that verse. I even bought this cover for a study Bible, and in here is a study Bible that John and Dorothy, his wife, brought me on the day of my ordination and gave it to me. And I wanted to get something special, and I found this, which is hugely special. This verse spoke into my life so much. Yes, it was written, not for me, it was written a long time ago, but it helped me in this time. In fact, the other thing is, it really helped me only a few weeks ago, going through another difficult time. And this Bible was on my sofa, we're getting ready to move, and there was things on top. And I moved things on top as I was tying it away, and I saw this. And the words, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, just jumped out at me. And really spoke into that situation. So not only did it speak into the situation, what was about 6 years ago, it also spoke into my situation a few months ago. It really did help. But I think context is king, because when I heard this, when I first received this, it spoke to me. It really spoke into my situation, but it was going off and understanding and praying. Let's have a look, because this is an ESV Study Bible. Exactly what the ESV says about 29:11. What does it say? The proper context this is. It says, God's plans for the exiles is welfare, not evil or calamity. Having sought Babylon's shalom, the exiles will receive God's shalom in the form of a future hope in their homeland. This was written for the exiles. This wasn't written for me, but boy, did it really apply to that situation. It couldn't have been more the right verse. And when I spoke to John about it after, he said, he'd been praying for us and praying into our situation, and God gave him the verse. He believed really it was from God. And he's such a godly man that, as he gave it to me, is one of those people that I would take that verse off him. Yes, I would go check, and does it speak into my situation? But he wouldn't give anything lightly. We also have to remember, and this is one of the interesting things, is the bit of history. We didn't get chapters, so like Jeremiah 29, the chapters weren't made until the 13th century by a guy called Stephen Langton, who became an Archbishop of Canterbury. So in the 13th century, in the 1200, I think it's 1204, 1205, we get the chapters. There was no chapters before then. The verses came in 1551 in the New Testament and 1571 in the Hebrew Bible by Robert Estein. So it's in the 16th century we got verses. When we give chapters and verses to people, when we say John 3:16 or Jeremiah 29:11 or whatever, even the verses in that effect aren't what was in the original manuscripts. There weren't any chapters and verses. So even what we give, when people say, oh, you can't give a verse out of context, it's, well, you can't even give a verse because the verse was added on a lot later. It really does hugely depend on the context. And when John gave me this Bible, and it was on the day of my ordination, he wrote in it, for me, here, 2 Timothy 4, 1-2, in the presence of God and of Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead, and in view of his appearing and his kingdom, I give you this charge. Preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, correct, rebuke and encourage, with great patience and careful instruction. On the occasion of my ordination at Christchurch, Oxford, Saturday the 4th of July 2015. That charge and that passage was written for Timothy. It wasn't written for me. But John is using it to remind me, through Timothy, exactly what I'm doing as a priest in the Church of England, to be honouring to Christ and remembering my calling. Just as Timothy was instructed on his calling, John was instructing me on my calling. So context is absolutely king. If you are going through a situation and someone gives you a verse, or you feel someone's going through a verse and you want to give somebody a verse that you believe is from God, pray over it, both sides, both receiving and giving, and understand whether this verse is applicable to that situation. I also believe that the God who created all the universe can take these verses and help people, because they are from the Bible, they're inspired by the Holy Spirit, they're sacred scripture, and they can be used to speak into people's lives today. And when you get verses like Jeremiah 29:11, yes, a lot of people use it as a classic verse, but there might be more obscure verses, and sometimes maybe the more obscure verses will help people more. It's not like, it's Jeremiah 29:11. So can you? Yes, I believe that you can, and I believe that God does use that and will use that, and I think God is bigger than the context of what it's written in. He knows our lives, he knows his book, and he will use people to speak into that. We really, to receive that rightly, and people not abusing this, have to understand the context, and so use it and as an encouragement for other people. This is scripturally based words given to people to speak into difficult situations or discerning situations in their lives. So can you? Yes, but context is king. What do you think though? Do you agree or do you disagree? Put your comments below, because it'd be interesting to see different points of view on this, and why, if you don't agree with me, you can't do it. And what happens if you personally had a verse pop into your head when you're speaking or praying for someone in a difficult situation? What would you do in that situation? Not in a bad way, just kind of understanding how you would deal with that situation. Put your comments below. Like the video so more people get to see it. Subscribe for more great content to help you go deeper in your faith, and more importantly, to live it out in the world today. And I will see you soon. Bye.